I never thought I'd see the day when my own neighbor, who just happened to be the new HOA president, would send her teenage son to steal my truck, and then call the cops to pin it all on me. And the craziest part? She had no idea the state attorney was already listening. So let me take you back to the start, because this nightmare didn't happen overnight. Act 1. The conflict begins. My name's Tim Miller. I live in a quiet suburban neighborhood, the kind of place where arguments should be about lawn heights or who left trash cans out too long, not Grand Theft Auto. And me, I'm a mechanic, a Navy veteran, a dad. My pride and joy outside of my family is my truck, a 1999 Ford F-150 named Betty. She's not flashy, not some showroom queen. Her paint's chipped, her seat molded perfectly to me, her engine rebuilt piece by piece with my own hands. She's mine. Enter Karen Spruce, the newly crowned queen of our HOA. Picture every stereotype of a power-drunk HOA president, multiply it by 10, and slap a fake smile on top. That's Karen. She cornered me one afternoon while I was washing Betty. With this sugary voice that could rot your teeth, she said, "You know, Tim, my son Ryan's turning 16 soon. He just loves your truck. It would be perfect for him." I laughed politely and said, "Betty's not for sale. Sentimental value." Her smile didn't even twitch. It just froze, then turned cold. That same afternoon, she filmed my truck, dialed 911, and told the cops I was harassing her over the fence. Can you imagine? One minute I'm washing my truck, the next I'm getting split up from my neighbor like I'm a kindergartner in time out. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about community standards. This was about power. And she'd just declared war. Act 2. Escalation and the turning point. A week later, the cops came by again, not for her nonsense this time, but to show me how thieves were using high-tech gadgets to steal cars. They ran a demonstration right in my driveway. 10 seconds flat, they stole Betty using a little relay box, never even touching a key. I felt sick, and I knew deep in my gut it wasn't random. Karen had already set her sights on Betty for Ryan's birthday. This was just her trial run. That night, my house turned into an operations center. My wife, Deborah, ex-Navy signals analyst, took over the cameras and sensors. My son, Phil, only 16, wired up a hidden kill switch in Betty. Me, I sat in the dark watching the Spruce house like it was an enemy bunker. But let me be honest with you, this was the part where I almost broke. I caught myself thinking, what am I doing? I'm staking out my own living room. This is suburbia, not a battlefield. Maybe I should just sell the truck, take the money, and be done. I hated that thought. I hated feeling like I was the crazy one, like maybe she was right, and Betty was just an old truck lowering property values. But then I'd look at Phil, my kid, steady hands, wiring up that kill switch instead of playing video games. I'd look at Deborah turning our kitchen into a command center just to protect what's ours. And I realized, if I gave up, what lesson would that teach them? That bullies win. That you roll over when someone with a title says you should know. Not in my house. So I stayed the course. The break-in. Sure enough, just past 1 a.m. it happened. 2 figures in hoodies crept down the sidewalk. One carried a little black box, the relay amplifier. The other Ryan. 16 years old, trembling, about to commit a felony because Mommy said he deserved my truck. I watched through binoculars as he unlocked Betty and slid inside. A second later, the engine roared to life. My engine, my truck, and started rolling silently down the street. Here's where I want you to pause and ask yourself, what would you have done? Would you have run out screaming? Would you have called 911 and hoped for the best? Me, I let him roll 20 feet right under the streetlight, right into full view of every camera I had. Then I whispered into the walkie-talkie, "Now, Phil." From the garage, my son pressed a little remote. And just like that, Betty died. Quiet. Instant. A 2-ton machine paralyzed in the middle of the road. Ryan panicked, fell out of the truck, tried to bolt. I intercepted him. Hands where I can see them, I told him, pinning him just enough to keep him down. He was shaking, muttering, "Please don't tell her I messed up. Mom said if it went bad, run." And then his phone buzzed. a new text. From Mom. It read, "Is it done? Do you have it? Answer me, Ryan." That was it. The smoking gun. The next second, headlights washed the street. Officers Davis and Reed pulling up quietly, already waiting nearby because I'd texted go. We had her. Karen had orchestrated her own downfall in writing. But she wasn't done yet. You'd think anyone caught like that would lay low. Not Karen. A couple days later, she marched back swinging her favorite weapon, the HOA. She called a tow truck to my house, claiming Betty was abandoned and leaking fluids. A flat-out lie. I was literally working on her when the truck pulled up. I showed the driver my paperwork, pointed at the inspection sticker, "Clean driveway," and said flatly, "She's evidence in an ongoing felony investigation. You tow her, you become an accessory." The driver paled, crumpled the work order signed by guess who, Karen Spruce. He backed off fast. Karen, of course, doubled down, shrieking about community standards while dialing other board members on speaker. And all I could think was, perfect. Keep talking, Karen. Dig deeper. Because by then, Investigator Alvarez from the state attorney's office was in play. And she had a plan. Act 3. The Showdown. Alvarez asked me to make one last move. Call Karen, pretend I was scared, intimidated, ready to cave. Offer to sell her Betty for pennies just to make the problem go away. I hated even pretending to grovel to that woman, but I did it. And she took the bait. Her voice softened, dripping with fake sweetness. "Well, Tim, I suppose that's reasonable. A shame about the misunderstanding with Ryan and the tow truck. But yes, let's call it resolved." Bang! On tape, her own voice tying it all together. Now all we had to do was wait for the HOA meeting, the stage she'd set for her victory lap. The meeting. Picture it. 30 neighbors in a beige community center, fluorescent lights buzzing, the smell of stale coffee. Karen at the front table chairing the meeting like a dictator in pearls. She launched into her speech about outstanding property violations, targeting me without naming me. Talking about junk vehicles and aesthetic harmony. I raised my hand. Calm. "Since it's my truck, may I respond?" She forced a smile. "Of course, Tim." I didn't bother standing. I just clicked my laptop. The projector behind her lit up with crystal-clear ring footage, Ryan sneaking into my truck. The dash cam catching his face. The text messages glowing on his phone. Gasps echoed around the room. Someone muttered, "Is that Karen's number?" Karen snapped, voice shrill. "This is slander-edited footage." And then she made the mistake, the fatal slip. She screamed. I even took official HOA action to have that piece of junk towed for being abandoned. Right there on record in front of everyone, including Investigator Alvarez, quietly recording in the back. The doors opened. Officers Davis and Reed walked in, not in uniform this time, but in suits. 2 more detectives followed. The room went silent. Davis unfolded a piece of paper, his voice carried like a hammer. "Karen Spruce, I have a warrant for your arrest. Charges conspiracy to commit grand theft, attempted grand theft, auto use of a minor in a felony, and filing false police reports." Karen froze, mouth opening and closing like a fish, her face drained of color. The same woman who had strutted around dictating standards now looked small, fragile, beaten. Neighbors stared. Some whispered. Tommy, the guy down the street with Crocs and a bathrobe, just muttered, "Holy cow." And that was it. She was led out in cuffs, silent, no more fake smiles. Final line. When someone abuses power to bully others, they eventually trip over their own lies. The real standard worth protecting isn't property value, it's justice.